know that Labour always in government...
No, that's not true, though, is it?
We know that Labour always in government end up taxing more and taxing more widely than they said that they would. We also know...
You can't just make things up.
I know you can't.
You can't stand in a party conference speech and say Labour want to tax meat when that's not true. Now, joining me on the stage, hot footing from the... You've just been on the stage and now you've joined Times Radio. Michael Gove.
Oh, Times Radio always first.
Except not in this case, because you have to... What
first for the news.
What have you just been wowing the crowds with in your speech?
I've been explaining to the audience the significant achievements of the last 13 years of Conservative government, and then outlining some of our plans for housing and meeting our housing targets in the future, and also saying a little bit about levelling up.
Well, you're in charge of levelling up. Is completing the leg of HS2 to Euston in central London, but scrapping the line to Manchester, going to help level up the north?
Well, you are, like so many others, speculating about a decision that hasn't yet been taken. I think the important thing to stress is that when it comes to levelling up, transport infrastructure is important, and transport infrastructure is not just about linking the great cities of the north with London. It's also about making sure that within those cities we improve transport links, and we also improve transport links between those cities as well.
Back in March, you said it will link through Crewe to Manchester. And you thought that was a good idea. Do you still think it's a good idea?
Well, I think the maximum amount of infrastructure investment, the better. But it's also important that we make sure that we get value for money. And the Chancellor, the Prime Minister and the Transport Secretary have been scrutinising a budget which has been, I'm afraid, ballooning out of control. We need to make sure that we get value for money for every penny that the taxpayer gives us. And so we're looking at all of our transport spending in order to make sure that we can get them the most effective deployment of that infrastructure.
Boris Johnson, David Cameron, Theresa May, all close personal friends of yours, of course. They all say it should go ahead. Are they wrong?
Well, I'm loath ever to disagree with Boris or with David or with Theresa, but they, while they all have distinguished records in government, don't have to grapple with the decisions that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have to grapple with now.
This time last year, you joined us on the Times Radio stand in probably the greatest ever Conservative Party conference.
Yes, when I failed to make it to number 10.
You were a mere humble backbencher.
I was a backbencher, yes.
Yes, and now you're back in the cabinet. Back then, I asked you whether you agreed with your old friend Boris Johnson when he said benefits should rise in line with inflation. You said you thought benefits last year should rise in line with inflation. Do you think this year that benefits should rise in line with inflation?
As I said last time, I think I'm not going to prejudge or anticipate the tough decisions that the Chancellor and the Welfare Secretary have to make.
No, last year you said you agreed with Boris Johnson that it should rise in line with inflation.
But I also said before that I didn't want to prejudge. But I offered a general opinion. But on this occasion, I'll be more reticent.
But have you changed your mind since last year?
I've changed my position.
But that just means you're in the cabinet. Are you making the case in the cabinet for increasing benefits in line with inflation?
Part of the privilege of being in the cabinet is that you get the chance to lobby for or to argue for certain positions. But coming with that freedom and with that ability to talk directly to ministers, there's also a responsibility to keep those conversations private. And that's what I fear I'm going to have to do. OK, let's move on and talk about some of the actual announcements that have been happening in this conference. Your successor as Education Secretary is a job that you had for a long time, Gillian Keegan. Her big announcement yesterday was banning mobile phones in schools. Good idea. Well, I know it's a good idea. You talked about doing it in 2007, 16 years ago. You then announced it when you were Education Secretary. Gavin Williamson announced it twice when he was Education Secretary, in 2021 and 2023. Even Matt Hancock managed to announce it when he was Culture Secretary in 2018. Why is that the Education Secretary, after 13 years in charge of the education system, why is a re-announcement of a re-announcement of a re-announcement of a re-announcement of a re-announcement the big announcement from the Education Secretary? It's not the only announcement from the Education Secretary. Throughout the year, you've seen Gillian delivering enhanced degree apprenticeship access. We've expanded the number of free schools in our country with a particular emphasis on new free schools for children with special educational needs. As I was reminding the conference, we also this year recorded the best results of any Western country in the international league tables for reading. This year, the schools that are getting the most students into Oxford and Cambridge, that's not the be-all and end-all, by the way, but it's still a good measure of success. Some of the schools that are getting the most students in are state schools. Brampton Manor, Harris Westminster, the London Academy of Excellence, that didn't exist 13 years ago. So, again, the policy that Gillian announced is an important one, but it's only one of a range of things that we're doing in education
And our record in education, as Adam Bolton was being reminded on Sunday, is one of relentless improvement.
It's interesting, actually, because I was struck listening to you on the show with Adam Bolton at the weekend, where it feels like education is still the thing that really drives you, you're most passionate about. It's one of the few success stories that the Tories actually have, and that's why you, as Levelling Up in Housing Secretary, you keep retreating back to education.
Not retreating. I'm very proud of what we've done in education. And it was not just me. It was the leadership shown by David Cameron and George Osborne, the continued leadership shown by Nick Gibb. And Gillian is taking it forward. But also in my speech...
She's taking forward the annual announcement about banning mobile phones in schools.
It's an important announcement.
Do you think you'll be announcing it again next year?
Well, text me or WhatsApp me on that. But the critical thing is also, in my speech, which I had to keep to 10 minutes, I also referenced some of our other successes in government, our environmental successes, the fact that we're leading the world in the way in which we've reformed farming support, the fact that we're the only country, I think, in the world to have reached the 30% of our oceans free of exploitation, the 30 by 2030 pledge to rewild our seas. We're the only country that's met that. And, of course, we're leading on offshore wind. I also referenced some of the other changes that we've made. Particularly because of the effective targeting of welfare. We've now got 1 million more people in work than when we came to power in 2010.
You mentioned the environment. That was a job that you did as well as Environment Secretary. Your successor as Environment Secretary this time used her big conference. Therese Coffey's big announcement was that she said, bent or straight, the government should not be telling you how bendy your banana should be. So she's going to scrap the rules. Is that banana too straight? Is this the big issue that the government should be addressing? How bendy your bananas are?
My own view is that I should not be pronouncing on how straight someone should be.
Right. What about my banana?
Or something should be.
Right. Okay. We had James Cleverly as well, the Foreign Secretary, made a speech at a Fringe where he was claiming he was going to go to the Falklands because it wouldn't be safe if there was a Labour government. So we've got bendy bananas, loony lefties, saving the Falklands. This whole conference feels it's like a sort of 80s tribute act. There's no big new ideas here. It's re-announcements and it's bendy bananas.
Well, again, you were presenting at the time, but in the speech that I just gave, I outlined some of our plans on housing, some of the significant changes that we're going to make in order to regenerate town centres and to provide people with a route to home ownership. It was also the case that Steve announced as Health Secretary a significant expansion of medical school places, and it was also the case that Michelle, as Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, also announced additional support for the work that we're leading in artificial intelligence. So, of course, skilled journalism will involve picking up on a stray comment here or a fruit-based reference there, and that's fine. But in government, as I think Danny Finkelstein pointed out, you've got to care about everything. You've got to care about everything from
millions of people
from the low-hanging fruit to the big bananas.
So the thing is, millions of people care about getting on the housing ladder.
Yes.
You did have a plan for that.
I do.
And then, no, you did have, this is the problem. In 13 years of government, you have a plan and there isn't a plan. You have a target and there isn't a target. People just think, you've had 13 years to sort this out. Why do I believe Michael Gove now on housing when it's the opposite of what you've said before, it's the opposite of what you said before, or it's just re-announcing again and again and again?
No, not at all. Not at all. So
you did. You had a national target and then you didn't because you gave in to your Tory MPs rather than people who can't buy a house.
We do have a national target and we've met it. We have two national targets actually, 300,000 a year and 1 million...
Which you're not meeting.
No, we're not meeting that one, but we have met the target of 1 million new homes, or we're just about to, in this Parliament. And also, we're spending billions of pounds on our affordable homes programme, specifically in order to make sure that we can have more homes for social rent and more homes for shared ownership, as well as outlining plans, which I did in July, for significant investment in London to extend Docklands East, in Leeds in order to regenerate the city centre there, and also in Cambridge. To make sure that that city has a room to expand.
You had a target to build 300,000 homes with local targets imposed. There was a rebellion of Tory MPs, and you tore that up. You put keeping Tory MPs happy before people who want to buy a house.
No, I wouldn't say that. What we did is we have kept those targets, but we've made sure that when local planning authorities come forward, if there are strong environmental reasons for them to say we need to protect the green belt or we need to protect an area of outstanding natural beauty, then the planning inspector will take that into account in assessing what the revised housing housing target would be. Technical stuff,
yeah.
But of course people wanted to depict it in a particular way. That's fine. I understand how people create a narrative in politics, but
no, Michael, that is just what happened.
No,
you had a top-down target. There was a Tory rebellion, and you got rid of it.
No. That is the media narrative. That is not the truth. I'll tell you one thing, though, that is true about housing.
I'll tell you what. Let's talk about truth.
We don't have very
long, Michael.
Nutrient neutrality. The truth there,
yeah.
We were bringing in plans which would have unlocked 100,000 new homes.
Yeah.
Labour voted against them. Keir Starmer allied with the Duke of Wellington in order to stop us building new homes for young people.
Let's talk about truth then. Why is the Energy Secretary making up that Labour want to tax meat?
I don't think Claire is making up anything.
But the Labour Party do not have a plan to tax meat. Well, she said in her speech in the conference, it's why Labour is so relaxed about taxing meat. Well, that's not true.
We know that Labour always in government.
No, that's not true though, is it?
We know that Labour always in government end up taxing more and taxing more widely than they said that they would. We also know...
You can't just make things up.
I know you can't.
You can't stand at a party conference speech and say Labour want to tax meat when that's not true.
Well, the truth is that Labour are the party of high taxation. They've been relentlessly the party of high taxation. And it is also the case...
No, I'll tell you what, Michael, there's one party which has been the party of relentless high taxation, and it's the government that you're serving in.
Well,
the highest level of taxes... I don't know how you can go into an election talking about Labour are going to put up taxes, when as a Conservative government, we've got the highest level of tax ever.
Well, several things there. Firstly, it's Labour who've always levied a higher tax burden than the Conservatives. Secondly, the reason why we have taxes where they are now is because of, and I know that people are bored of hearing it, but it is true, and that's why it is repeated, because we have the consequences of the worst pandemic for 100 years and the biggest conflict on European soil since 1945. So these are inescapable pressures on our economy, but Conservatives, if you compare Conservatives, for example, in local government with Labour and Liberal Democrats, Conservatives always offer lower taxation.
Okay. I've known you for a long time. I think even before the 2010 election, our paths crossed a lot. You spent a long time trying to get the Conservatives back into a place of being electable. You thought big thoughts about education. You introduced them in the face of opposition. Some people liked them, some people didn't. I feel like you're somebody who wants big, government to do big things. And this feels like a very silly party conference, dominated by a row about a train line which you said was a good idea, which now might not be a good idea, bananas, made-up meat taxes. Isn't it all just a bit... Do you just wonder what you're doing?
No. I was able, as I mentioned earlier, to run through not just 13 years of significant achievement, but also to lay out long-term plans for two of our biggest challenges. The Levelling Up White Paper, which my department published, was one of the most substantial analyses of how to overcome geographical inequality in this country. And the steps that we're taking, some of them distinctly unglamorous, but some of them very high profile, giving more power to regional mayors, investing research and development cash across the United Kingdom. That is big potatoes. That is an ambitious agenda.
Let's just focus on. I'm slightly conscious of time.
Sure, sorry.
The last, I know you have some experience of Tory leadership contests. At the last one, you didn't throw your hat in the ring.
No.
You said that Kemi Badenoch was the future of the party.
Yes.
Is that still the case?
Well, I think Kemi's great. Absolutely brilliant. Outstanding minister. The party took a view. We now have Rishi as our Prime Minister. In the choice between Liz and Rishi, with which party members were eventually presented, I said that I thought that Rishi was the better choice. A majority of my fellow party members respectfully disagreed with me at the time. But I think now that decision, I've got some things wrong in the past, as we know, that decision was at least vindicated.
I told you so, is what you're telling the party members.
I am not saying that. Others might say that. I'm just saying that I think we're all in a much better position with Rishi. No disrespect to Liz.
What about Suella Braverman? Kemi Badenoch's been very critical of Suella Braverman and her comments on the multiculturalism in the UK. Do you... and we've had a succession of Tory MPs and ministers saying that she's just completely out of line, what Suella Braverman was saying. What do you think?
No, Suella's a friend of mine, and I think she was making a very important point. I think that we as a country welcome tens and indeed recently hundreds of thousands of people into our country, many of them fleeing persecution from Ukraine, Afghanistan, Hong Kong.
But she said multiculturalism had failed.
Well, the particular thing is, different people at different times either mean different things or infer different things. And the substance of Suella's speech was, if you're going to absorb, and we should, people from abroad who are fleeing persecution, you need a common culture. You need certain common liberal values, the rule of law, respect for free speech, and so on, which are non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a critical point. And funnily enough, it is a point that's also been made by Angela Merkel, Emmanuel Macron, and a variety of other figures.
I don't know if you've seen the video. I know you're a man who likes dancing.
I do.
Have you seen the video of Priti Patel dancing with Nigel Farage?
No, I haven't.
I Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. What's the worst thing that you've ever seen if you haven't seen that video already?
The worst thing I've ever seen is Keir Starmer trying to answer a question on Brexit.
Right, very good. You said that while fingering my banana. Now, would you like to have a go at my steady hand game? Victoria Atkins is top of the league table at the moment.
I think I'm going to fail.
Well,
because
it's very straightforward. It's a steady hand. You've been a steady hand on the government tiller for such a long time.
Where do I start?
You start on the left and move gradually to the right, like everyone does. Not yet. I'll tell you when you can go. Every time you buzz it, you'll hear that noise. We add 5 seconds. The quicker you get round it, the better.
Okay.
But wait, I haven't told you you can start yet. While you're doing it, you have to recite Rishi Sunak's 5 key pledges.
Okay.
On your marks, get set, go.
We are going to halve the rate of inflation.
That's one.
We are going to stop,
That's a buzz.
stop the boats.
I think that's 2 buzzes.
We are going
That's
to
another
grow
buzz.
Britain's economy.
Oh, that's 3 pledges.
We're going
That's
to
a lot of buzzes. That's a 5 buzzes.
reduce the debt.
Yeah, that's good. That's 6 buzzes.
And we're going to cut
7
waiting
budges.
lists in the NHS.
Right, very good. I'm going to say that 8 buzzes. Let's have a round of applause for Michael Gove. There we are. Slightly sarcastic sort of cricket round of applause. There we are. So what's the total time? 1 minute 12. Where does that put him? Bottom. Second for bottom. So there we are.
Second for bottom.
Yes.
So they're basically sort of the Burnley.
Very good. Michael, it's lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you, Matt.
Thanks for popping in for your annual appearance.
Not at all. No, look forward to seeing you again soon.
Nice to see you. Michael Gove there, doing the steady hand buzzer game, and there's just people now mobbing Michael Gove like a rock star. There we are. There was plenty there to discuss. Michael Gove, from planning reform to the straightness of my banana.